Most people think power is loud. They think strength is aggression. They think dominance is reaction. They are wrong. Real power is restraint. Real danger is control. Real dominance is the ability to remain calm when everyone else loses themselves. When you stop reacting, you become unpredictable. When you stop explaining, you become untouchable. When you stop chasing validation, you become impossible to manipulate. This audiobook will teach you how to weaponize silence, master your emotions, and build a presence so controlled that few will dare challenge it. Because the most dangerous person in any room is the one who cannot be provoked. Chapter 1. Power is not loud. Most people think power is loud. They think dominance is volume. They think authority is aggression. They think strength is visible force. They are wrong. Noise is weakness. Control is power. Look around any room. The loudest person is usually the most insecure. The one interrupting. The one forcing opinions. The one demanding attention. That isn't authority. That's compensation. When someone has to shout to be heard, it means their presence alone is not enough. Noise is weakness. Control is power. You have a choice. You can compete for attention like everyone else, or you can command attention without asking for it. That's the difference. Real authority is calm, measured, deliberate. It does not rush. It does not beg. It does not chase validation. It stands still and lets others adjust. Think about the most intimidating person you've ever encountered. Were they screaming, or were they composed? True authority rarely raises its voice, because it doesn't need to. When you are internally stable, you don't leak emotion. You don't overreact. You don't scramble to defend your position. You state your decision once. Then you move. That's power. It's not about volume. It's about discipline. And discipline is quiet. You've been conditioned to believe that to be heard, you must speak more. To win, you must argue harder. To dominate, you must overpower. Wrong. The one who stays calm while others escalate automatically controls the frame. In a disagreement, the person who loses emotional control loses authority. The moment your voice rises, your leverage drops. The moment your emotions spike, your stability becomes questionable. You have a choice. React emotionally and surrender authority, or remain composed and let others expose themselves. Noise is weakness. Control is power. Let's get practical. At work, when someone challenges you publicly, what do most people do? They defend immediately. They over-explain. They interrupt. They talk faster. They try to win the moment. And they lose, because urgency signals insecurity. Instead, pause. Slow your breathing. Lower your tone. Shorten your response. Calm responses create psychological gravity. When you speak slowly and deliberately, people lean in. When you don't rush to defend yourself, you signal certainty. When you don't react to provocation, you become unpredictable. That's the key. Authority is not asserted. It is demonstrated through restraint. It's not about appearing strong. It's about being stable. And stability is rare. Most people are emotionally fragile. They are one comment away from defensiveness, one disagreement away from agitation, one inconvenience away from frustration. Be different. When chaos rises, you lower your voice. When others panic, you slow down. When emotions spike, you remain neutral. That contrast creates dominance. You don't need their permission to be powerful. You don't need applause. You don't need agreement. You don't need to win every argument. You need control. Noise is weakness. Control is power. There is a reason elite negotiators speak less. There is a reason high-level leaders pause before responding. There is a reason experienced commanders remain calm in crisis. Panic spreads. Calm spreads faster. If you control yourself, you influence the emotional temperature of the room. That's leadership. But here's where most people fail. They try to look calm instead of becoming calm. You can't fake restraint. Micro-expressions expose you. Tone exposes you. Body language exposes you. This is internal work. You must train your nervous system. When you feel the urge to interrupt, don't. When you feel the urge to defend, pause. When you feel the urge to prove, stay silent. You have a choice. Every reaction is a test. And most people fail because their ego is louder than their discipline. It's not about ego. It's about emotional governance. If someone insults you and you explode, who is in control? Not you. They are. If someone doubts you and you over-explain, who holds the power? Not you. They do. You cannot be dangerous if you are easily provoked. Dangerous people are controlled. They don't advertise strength. They embody it. Consider this. When a lion walks into a space, it doesn't roar constantly to remind everyone of its power. His presence is enough. Your goal is presence. Presence is built through restraint. You don't rush to speak. You don't chase attention. You don't compete for validation. You stand grounded. And grounding creates gravity. Psychological gravity is when people adjust to you instead of you adjusting to them. That's real power. But you must let go of the addiction to noise. Some people talk because silence makes them uncomfortable. Some argue because being right feels like survival. Some dominate conversations because being ignored feels like rejection. That's insecurity. Noise is weakness. Control is power. You don't need to fill every gap. You don't need to answer every criticism. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. Restraint multiplies impact. When you speak less, your words carry weight. When you react less, your actions speak louder. When you remain calm, your presence becomes commanding. You have a choice. Be loud and forgettable, or be calm and unforgettable. Power is not loud. It is contained. It is deliberate. It is disciplined. And here's the transformation. Stop trying to appear powerful. Stop trying to win every room. Stop trying to dominate every interaction. Instead, master your internal state. Lower your voice. Slow your speech. Control your breathing. Hold eye contact without aggression. Pause before responding. These are behaviors. Train them daily, because it's not about personality. It's about discipline. You weren't born reactive. You were conditioned to be, and conditioning can be reversed. Each moment gives you a decision: escalate, or stabilize, impress, or control, prove, or embody. That's the key. The person who embodies control doesn't need to convince anyone of anything. They already know, and certainty doesn't shout. It stands still. Noise is weakness. Control is power. This is where danger begins, not in aggression, but in restraint. Not in domination, but in discipline. Not in being the loudest, but in being the most controlled. Master this, and you shift the balance in every room you enter. You stop competing. You start commanding. You stop reacting. You start governing. Power is not loud. And now that you understand this truth, it's time to confront the deeper reality behind reaction itself. Because the moment you react, you surrender control. Chapter 2. The one who reacts is controlled. If someone can trigger your anger, they control you. Read that again. If someone can trigger your anger, they control you. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. It doesn't matter how skilled you are. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If they can push a button and change your emotional state, you are not in charge. They are. Reaction is surrender. If I react, I lose. That is the standard. Most people live in reaction mode. They think they are making choices. They are not. They are responding to stimuli, notifications, criticism, tone shifts, disrespect, delays, disagreement, stimulus, reaction, stimulus, reaction. That is not power. That is programming. You have a choice. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a gap. In that gap is control. In that gap is discipline. In that gap is danger. If you eliminate the gap, you eliminate your power. If I react, I lose. Let's break this down in the real world. Social media. Someone disagrees with you publicly. Someone insults you. Someone questions your intelligence, your success, your values. What happens? Your heart rate rises. Your fingers tense. You feel the urge to respond immediately. That urge is the trap. Social media platforms are engineered to extract emotion. Outrage spreads faster than logic. Anger spreads faster than discipline. Reaction spreads faster than thought. Why? Because emotional people are predictable, and predictable people are controllable. You don't need their permission to disengage. You don't need to correct every stranger. You don't need to defend your identity online. You don't need to win digital arguments. If I react, I lose. Silence online is power. Non-response is dominance. Indifference is leverage. The same applies at work. A colleague challenges you in a meeting. Their tone is sharp. Their comment is loaded. They want a reaction. They want you flustered. They want you defensive. Why? Because once you're emotional, you're off balance. When you rush to defend, you look uncertain. When you interrupt, you look threatened. When your tone rises, you look unstable. That's not authority. You have a choice. Slow your breathing. Let them finish. Pause. Then respond calmly, briefly, directly. No emotional leakage. If I react, I lose. Now let's go deeper. Relationships. Arguments escalate not because of the original issue, but because of reaction chains. One sharp comment, one defensive response, one sarcastic reply, escalation, two people reacting to reactions. That is not communication. That is emotional ping pong. The first person who stabilizes wins. Not wins the argument, wins control. It's not about being right. It's about being regulated. If you cannot regulate your nervous system, you cannot regulate your life. That's the key. Reaction feels powerful in the moment. Feels like strength. Feels like standing up for yourself. But uncontrolled reaction is not strength. It is exposure. It exposes your triggers. It exposes your insecurities. It exposes your ego. Once someone identifies your trigger, they own leverage over you. And leverage is control. If I react, I lose. So what do you do instead? You train delay. When insulted, pause. When criticized, pause. When provoked, pause. 3 seconds. That pause feels uncomfortable. That's good. Growth is uncomfortable. In that pause, you ask one question. Is this worth my emotional energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. But ego screams yes. Ego wants to prove. Ego wants to correct. Ego wants the last word. Discipline wants control. It's not about pride. It's about power. You must decide which one you value more. You have a choice. Be emotionally available to everyone, or be emotionally disciplined with everyone. Emotional restraint breaks manipulation loops. Manipulators survive on reaction. Drama survives on reaction. Toxic environments survive on reaction. Remove reaction and the system collapses. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain calm, something shifts. They become unsettled. They escalate, or they retreat, because their strategy failed. They expected anger. They expected defensiveness. They expected emotional chaos. They did not expect control. Control is rare. That's why it's powerful. If I react, I lose. This doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It doesn't mean you suppress emotion. It means you respond strategically instead of reacting impulsively. Reaction is instant. Response is intentional. Reaction is emotional. Response is calculated. Reaction gives away power. Response preserves it. That's the difference. If a boundary needs to be set it calmly. If a correction needs to be made, make it directly. If a decision needs to be enforced, enforce it without anger. Calm enforcement is far more intimidating than emotional explosion. Anyone can yell. Few can remain composed under pressure. And pressure reveals hierarchy. The one who stays grounded becomes the reference point. The one who reacts becomes the unstable variable. Which one are you? You have a choice. This chapter is not about suppressing your humanity. It's about mastering it. Anger is natural. Frustration is natural. Disappointment is natural. Uncontrolled expression is optional. You train your mind the way you train a muscle. Each time you resist immediate reaction, you strengthen discipline. Each time you delay response, you increase control. Each time you refuse provocation, you reclaim authority. If I react, I lose. Let that phrase interrupt you the next time your ego flares. Let it slow your breathing. Let it anchor your tone. Let it steady your posture. Because the moment you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. And when you stop being controlled, you become dangerous. Dangerous not because you are aggressive, but because you are stable. Powerful not because you dominate, but because you cannot be manipulated. You mastered volume in the last chapter. Now you are mastering reaction. And once you eliminate reaction, something even more powerful begins to develop. Silence. Chapter 3. Silence is psychological pressure. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill it. They scramble to speak. They talk to relieve tension. That is weakness. Silence shifts power. When you are comfortable in silence, others become uncomfortable. And uncomfortable people reveal themselves. That's the advantage. Watch what happens in a conversation when you stop talking. Not abruptly, not awkwardly, calmly, intentionally. You hold eye contact. You say nothing. You wait. The other person starts explaining more. They justify. They overclarify. They reveal insecurity. Silence pulls information out of people. Noise hides it. Silence shifts power. Most individuals speak to manage their anxiety. They don't speak because it's necessary. They speak because the quiet feels heavy, and that heaviness exposes their inner instability. When you are grounded, silence doesn't threaten you. It strengthens you. You have a choice. Fill every gap with words, or let the gap do the work. In negotiations, the person who speaks first after a proposal usually loses leverage. Why? Because silence creates pressure. Imagine you state your price. Then you stop. No smile. No nervous laugh. No extra explanation. Just stillness. The other person now carries the tension. They begin calculating. They begin doubting. They begin adjusting. And often they begin conceding. Not because you argued harder, but because you held silence longer. Silence shifts power. In conflict, it works the same way. Someone criticizes you. They expect defense. They expect emotion. They expect pushback. Instead, you pause. You look at them calmly. You let the words sit in the air. You say nothing for 3 seconds. Those 3 seconds feel eternal to them. Why? Because silence forces people to confront their own statement. Without your reaction, their words echo back to them. If their comment was weak, it collapses. If their tone was excessive, it feels excessive. If their argument was emotional, it looks emotional. Silence exposes imbalance. You don't need their permission to pause. You don't need to respond instantly. You don't need to correct immediately. You don't need to rescue the conversation. Instant response is not strength. It is reflex. Disciplined silence is strength. It's not about being mute. It's about being measured. That's the key. The more you talk, the more you reveal. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. The more predictable you become, the easier you are to control. Silence protects unpredictability, and unpredictability creates psychological dominance. Think about high-level leaders, elite interrogators, skilled negotiators, experienced attorneys. They ask short questions, then they wait, and people talk, people confess, people justify, people overshare. Why? Because silence creates a vacuum, and insecure minds rush to fill vacuums. Silence shifts power. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. If you are uncomfortable in silence, you are uncomfortable with yourself. If you need constant noise, constant reassurance, constant engagement, you are externally regulated. Power requires internal regulation. You must train this. Start small. In your next conversation, speak 30% less than usual. Ask a question, then wait. When someone finishes talking, count 2 seconds before responding. Watch what happens. You'll notice they continue speaking. They clarify more. They sometimes correct themselves. They reveal more than they intended. Because silence feels like exposure, and exposure creates pressure. In arguments, silence is even more powerful. Most conflicts escalate because both parties talk over each other. Emotion meets emotion. Volume meets volume. Be the interruption to that pattern. When the other person raises their voice, you lower yours. When they accelerate, you slow down. When they attack, you pause. Silence shifts power. Your calm becomes contrast. Contrast creates dominance. This is not passive behavior. This is strategic behavior. Silence is not weakness. It is control. But it must be intentional. There is a difference between awkward silence and controlled silence. Awkward silence feels uncertain. Controlled silence feels deliberate. The difference is posture. Hold steady eye contact. Relax your shoulders. Keep your breathing slow. Your body must match your restraint. Because silence without composure looks fragile. Silence with composure looks formidable. You have a choice. React with words, or respond with stillness. Remember this: the person who talks more is usually seeking validation. The person who explains more is usually seeking approval. The person who interrupts silence is usually avoiding discomfort. You don't need validation. You don't need approval. You don't need to relieve discomfort. You need control. Silence shifts power. There's another layer. When you become known as someone who does not overshare, people respect your words more. When you finally speak, it carries weight. Scarcity increases value. If you speak constantly, your words become background noise. If you speak selectively, your words become signals. That's influence. And influence is quiet. You don't dominate by overpowering. You dominate by stabilizing. Silence forces others to self-regulate. And most people are not good at self-regulation. That is why they talk. Let them. The more they speak, the more data you collect. The more emotional they become, the calmer you appear. The calmer you appear, the stronger you look. Silence shifts power, but discipline is required. Because your ego will whisper, "Say something." Your anxiety will whisper, "This is awkward." Your pride will whisper, "Defend yourself." Ignore it. You have a choice. Every silence is a test of your internal stability. Pass the test. The dangerous person is not the loudest, not the angriest, not the most expressive. The dangerous person is the one who can sit in silence without flinching. Because that person cannot be rushed, cannot be pressured, cannot be manipulated easily. Silence is psychological pressure. And when you master it, you shift dynamics without raising your voice. You mastered volume. You mastered reaction. Now you are mastering space. And the next layer goes even deeper. Because silence is powerful, but your face can still betray you. Chapter 4. Control your face, control the frame. Your mouth can stay silent, but your face can still betray you. A raised eyebrow, a tightened jaw, a smirk, a flash of irritation. Micro-expressions are leaks, and leaks expose weakness. My face reveals nothing. Most people think control is about words. It's not. Words are the final layer. Your nervous system speaks first. Your face broadcasts emotion before your brain finishes processing it. If someone can read your frustration instantly, they gain leverage instantly. If someone sees your insecurity, they push harder. If someone sees your doubt, they press further. Micro-expressions betray emotional instability. And instability is exploitable. You have a choice. Let your face react automatically, or discipline it deliberately. That's the difference between emotional adulthood and emotional impulse. Watch high-level poker players. Watch elite military leaders. Watch seasoned negotiators. Their faces are neutral, not blank, not robotic, controlled. Why? Because information is power. If your opponent knows what you're feeling, they know how to move. If your boss sees you panic, they question your leadership. If your competitor sees you hesitate, they accelerate. If your partner sees you triggered, they gain emotional advantage. My face reveals nothing. That phrase must become instinct. This is not about being cold. It's about being contained. In high-stakes environments, your composure dictates the psychological frame. The frame is the emotional atmosphere. Whoever controls the emotional atmosphere controls the interaction. If someone walks into a room anxious and you absorb it, they control the frame. If someone raises their voice and you mirror it, they control the frame. If someone shows anger and you show fear, they control the frame. But if they bring chaos and you bring calm, you control the frame. Calm overrides chaos. Stillness overrides volatility. That's the key. Your face is the anchor. You must train it. Start with awareness. Notice your reactions during stress. Notice your jaw when irritated. Notice your eyes when surprised. Notice your forehead when challenged. Most people are unaware of their emotional leakage. You cannot control what you do not observe. So observe, then discipline. Relax your jaw consciously. Keep your breathing slow. Soften your eyes without losing focus. Keep your posture upright. Neutral does not mean weak. Neutral means stable. My face reveals nothing. There is power in being unreadable. When people cannot read you, they hesitate. When they hesitate, you gain time. When you gain time, you gain control. Control is leverage, and leverage wins outcomes. Imagine someone criticizes you publicly. The average person reacts visibly. Eyes widen, lips tighten, face shifts. Even if they say nothing, their expression screams. That visible reaction gives satisfaction to the aggressor. They know they hit something. Now imagine instead, steady gaze, slow blink, slight nod, calm expression, no visible disturbance. The aggressor now doubts themselves. Did it land? Did it matter? Did it work? Uncertainty shifts power. My face reveals nothing. This does not mean you suppress emotion internally. It means you regulate it externally. There is a difference. Suppression builds pressure. Regulation builds control. You regulate by slowing your body first. The body leads the mind. Slow breath, relaxed shoulders, still head position. Your nervous system follows posture. That's practical discipline. It's not about personality. It's about training. You train your face like you train your muscles. Every time you feel a reaction rising, you pause it. Every time irritation flashes, you neutralize it. Every time surprise hits, you steady it. You have a choice. Be emotionally transparent to everyone, or be emotionally strategic. Emotional neutrality is strategic, because high-stakes environments magnify small weaknesses. In interviews, negotiations, confrontations, leadership roles, people are scanning you constantly. They are reading signals: confidence, doubt, fear, arrogance, instability. Most of that is read through your face. If your face stays disciplined, you project authority. Authority is not loud. Authority is not aggressive. Authority is stable. My face reveals nothing. There is another advantage. When you control your expressions, you control escalation. Facial reactions often escalate conflict faster than words. An eye roll can ignite an argument. A smirk can trigger defensiveness. A glare can provoke aggression. Small signals, big consequences. When your face remains neutral, you remove fuel. And without fuel, fire dies. Silence shifted power in the last chapter. Now your face reinforces it. Because silence without composure looks tense. Silence with composure looks dominant. That's the distinction. You don't need their permission to remain steady. You don't need to mirror their emotion. You don't need to display your irritation. You don't need to perform your feelings. Feel internally. Govern externally. That's emotional maturity. Most people wear their nervous system on their face. You won't. That's discipline. But understand this clearly. Neutrality is not absence. It is presence under control. Your eyes stay engaged. Your posture stays firm. Your tone stays measured. You are not disengaged. You are regulated. My face reveals nothing. The more you practice this, the more people will feel it. They may not consciously identify it, but they will sense stability. And stability commands respect. In unstable environments, stable people rise. In emotional environments, disciplined people lead. Your face becomes your shield. Your composure becomes your weapon. Control the face and you control the frame. Control the frame and you control the outcome. This is how restraint becomes visible without being loud. This is how danger becomes quiet. You mastered volume. You mastered reaction. You mastered silence. Now you are mastering expression. And once your face stops leaking emotion, there is another behavior that quietly destroys authority. Over-explaining. Chapter 5. Stop explaining yourself. Over-explaining is a confession. It is a confession of doubt. A confession of insecurity. A confession that you need approval. Power does not over-explain. No explanation. Just action. Listen carefully. Every time you justify yourself excessively, you lower your authority. Every time you add extra reasons, extra clarifications, extra emotional padding, you signal uncertainty. Certainty is concise. Doubt is wordy. You have a choice. Speak once with clarity, or speak repeatedly seeking validation. Most people explain because they are afraid of disapproval. They say yes when they mean no, then explain. They make a decision, then defend it emotionally. They set a boundary, then soften it with justification. Why? Because they want to be liked. But respect is not built through over-clarification. It's built through consistency. No explanation, just action. This doesn't mean you never communicate reasoning. It means you don't emotionally defend your decisions. There is a difference. Explaining from confidence sounds measured. Explaining from insecurity sounds frantic. You can hear it in tone. You can see it in body language. You can feel it in energy. Imagine someone says, "I can't attend." Simple, clear, done. Now compare it to, "I'm so sorry. I really wish I could. I just have so much going on and I don't want you to think I don't care." And that's insecurity speaking. That's fear of rejection. And fear erodes authority. You don't need their permission to make a decision. You don't need to soften every boundary. You don't need to make your choices emotionally comfortable for everyone else. No explanation, just action. In the workplace, this principle is critical. A leader who constantly over-explains loses authority. A leader who states direction clearly and moves forward builds trust. This is the direction, not, "Well, I was thinking maybe we could consider possibly doing this because..." Hesitation invites doubt. Clarity invites alignment. It's not about arrogance. It's about decisiveness. That's the key. Over-explaining is often an unconscious attempt to control how others perceive you. You want them to understand. You want them to approve. You want them to see your reasoning. But here's the truth. People who respect you don't require constant justification. People who don't respect you won't be convinced by it anyway. So why waste energy? No explanation, just action. This also applies in conflict. When accused unfairly, the instinct is to defend every detail. Stop. You can respond once clearly, then silence. If you keep explaining, you signal guilt even if you are innocent. Confidence doesn't chase acceptance. Confidence stands still. You have a choice. Chase understanding, or embody certainty. Powerful individuals state decisions once and move forward. They don't linger. They don't circle back repeatedly. They don't beg to be understood. They act. Action reinforces authority more than words ever will. You say you value discipline? Show it. You say you have boundaries? Enforce them. You say you are calm? Remain calm. No explanation, just action. Here's a hard truth. If you need everyone to understand your decision before you execute it, you are externally governed. You are allowing consensus to dictate your behavior. But leadership requires internal governance. You decide. You communicate. You move. Not harshly. Not emotionally. Just directly. That directness is intimidating to people who rely on emotional persuasion. Because emotional persuasion loses power when faced with clarity. It's not about rudeness. It's about restraint. You can be polite and firm at the same time. No. Full stop. Watch how uncomfortable that makes people. Because most are used to negotiation after refusal. But when your no is calm and final, the negotiation dies. Silence shifts power. Conciseness reinforces it. No explanation, just action. Let's go deeper. Over-explaining is often tied to identity insecurity. You want people to see you as competent, so you over-detail. You want people to see you as kind, so you over-soften. You want people to see you as intelligent, so you over-elaborate. But true competence doesn't advertise itself. Performs. True intelligence doesn't ramble. It simplifies. True kindness doesn't self-justify. It acts with integrity. When you reduce verbal justification, you increase authority. Because brevity signals confidence. Confidence signals control. Control signals power. You have a choice. Fill space with defensive language, or let your decision stand alone. Remember this. If someone constantly challenges your boundaries, explanations will not fix it. Enforcement will. If someone constantly doubts your competence, arguing won't fix it. Performance will. If someone constantly misunderstands you, repetition won't fix it. Consistency will. No explanation, just action. There is freedom in this. Freedom from needing approval. Freedom from needing validation. Freedom from constant clarification. You make a decision aligned with your values. You communicate it calmly. You move forward. That's it. Not everyone will agree. That's fine. Not everyone will understand. That's fine. Not everyone will like it. That's fine. You are not here to be universally accepted. You are here to be internally stable. and internal stability does not over-explain. This chapter is about reclaiming verbal discipline. Speak less. Say it once. Mean it. Let your behavior reinforce your words. Because when your words are few and your actions are consistent, your authority compounds. You mastered silence. You mastered facial control. Now you are mastering verbal restraint. And once you stop explaining yourself, something else must be confronted. The desire to be liked. Chapter 6. Detach from the need to be liked. The need to be liked is subtle. It hides behind politeness. It hides behind over-agreement. It hides behind hesitation. But make no mistake, it weakens you. Seeking approval weakens decision-making. You cannot lead while trying to please everyone. Respect over approval. If you are constantly calculating how others will feel about your choices, you are not leading. You are negotiating your identity, and negotiation erodes authority. You have a choice: be agreeable and safe, or be decisive and respected. Most people choose safety. They soften their opinions. They dilute their standards. They delay hard decisions. Why? Because rejection feels threatening. Disapproval feels personal. But emotional restraint requires tolerating discomfort, especially the discomfort of being misunderstood. Respect over approval. Approval is emotional. Respect is structural. Approval comes and goes depending on mood. Respect remains when consistency is observed. If someone likes you but doesn't respect you, they will ignore your boundaries. If someone respects you but doesn't always like you, they will still take you seriously. Which one builds power? You already know. Respect over approval. Let's be honest. The desire to be liked drives most weak behavior. You say yes when you mean no. You laugh when you're offended. You avoid confrontation when standards are violated. Because you don't want to disrupt harmony. But harmony built on self-betrayal is not strength. It's slow erosion. You don't need their permission to set standards. You don't need universal agreement to move forward. You don't need applause to enforce boundaries. You need internal stability. That's the key. When you detach from the need to be liked, your decisions become cleaner. You stop hesitating. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for existing. You act with clarity. And clarity commands respect. Consider leadership. A leader who tries to be everyone's friend avoids hard conversations, avoids accountability, avoids difficult decisions. But leadership is not a popularity contest. Sometimes you must disappoint people. Sometimes you must say no. Sometimes you must enforce standards that others resist. If your emotional state depends on everyone liking you, you will compromise standards to protect your ego. That is weakness. Respect over approval. Emotional restraint means you can handle disapproval without spiraling. Someone disagrees? You remain steady. Someone criticizes you? You remain grounded. Someone withdraws approval? You remain unchanged. Because your identity is not tied to their reaction. Most people are externally validated. They feel strong when praised. They feel weak when criticized. That is emotional dependency. Dependency is leverage. And leverage invites manipulation. If someone knows you crave approval, they can withhold it to control you, compliment you to influence you, withdraw warmth to destabilize you, reward agreement to shape you. That is how approval becomes a tool. But when you detach from it, the tool breaks. respect over approval. This doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you prioritize principles over popularity. You choose integrity over comfort. Integrity sometimes isolates. That's fine. Isolation is not weakness. Compromise of standards is. You have a choice. Blend in to be liked, or stand firm to be respected. The need to be liked often stems from fear of rejection. But rejection is information. It tells you who aligns with your standards and who doesn't. Why fear clarity? If someone withdraws because you enforced a boundary, they were never aligned with you. If someone dislikes you because you remained calm under pressure, they were threatened by stability. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves influence over you. Respect over approval. Let's make this practical. Next time you feel the urge to soften a boundary to avoid discomfort, pause. Ask yourself, am I choosing approval over self-respect? If the answer is yes, correct it. Say the hard thing calmly. Hold the line without aggression. Accept the discomfort without apology. That's discipline. Because emotional restraint isn't just about controlling anger. It's about controlling the fear of rejection. You must be able to stand alone in your decisions. Not defensively, not arrogantly, calmly. When you tolerate disapproval without emotional collapse, something powerful happens. People sense it. They may not like it, but they respect it. And respect is heavier than approval. Approval is applause. Respect is weight. Approval is temporary. Respect compounds. Respect over approval. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood. Moments when your firmness makes others uncomfortable. Moments when your calm refusal frustrates people. Good. Growth is uncomfortable. Weakness seeks comfort. Strength tolerates friction. You are building strength. You mastered silence. You mastered facial control. You mastered verbal restraint. Now you are mastering social pressure. Because the need to be liked is social pressure. And once you are no longer driven by it, your decisions sharpen. Your posture changes. Your tone steadies. Your presence solidifies. You stop negotiating your worth. You start embodying it. Respect over approval. Remember this. You can be kind without being compliant. You can be calm without being submissive. You can be respectful without being agreeable. True strength is quiet and firm. And when you detach from the need to be liked, you become harder to manipulate, harder to pressure, harder to guilt, harder to control, because control often hides behind approval. Remove the need and you remove the leash. You have a choice. Chase validation or build authority. Authority requires restraint, and restraint requires independence from external praise. This is where emotional discipline deepens, because once you no longer need approval, you begin to radiate something else. Stability under pressure. Chapter 7. Emotional discipline creates fearless energy. Fear is loud. It rushes your speech, tightens your chest, it speeds your decisions. But most people don't call it fear. They call it urgency. They call it passion. They call it intensity. Look closer. Fear often manifests as overreaction. Anger is often fear. Defensiveness is often fear. Panic disguised as productivity is still fear. And fear makes you predictable. Calm is dominance. When you control your nervous system, you control your behavior. When you control your behavior, you control the frame. And when you control the frame, you control the outcome. That's the hierarchy. The nervous system you control becomes your advantage. You have a choice. Let adrenaline dictate your tone, or let discipline dictate your response. In high-pressure situations, most people escalate. Deadlines tighten, they panic. Criticism appears, they defend. Conflict arises, they attack or retreat. Automatic reactions. But the composed individual becomes the reference point. In crises, the calm person becomes the default leader. Not because they demanded authority, not because they shouted instructions, but because stability attracts trust. When chaos rises, humans instinctively look for grounding. If you are grounded, you become the anchor. Calm is dominance. Think about emergency situations. When everyone is panicking, who do you follow? The loudest voice or the steadiest one? You follow the steady one, because steady signals control. Control signals safety, and safety builds authority. Fear spreads quickly, but calm spreads faster when it is embodied. If your breathing slows, others unconsciously mirror it. If your tone lowers, others reduce theirs. If your posture stays upright and still, others adjust. Your nervous system sets the rhythm. That's power. Most people are slaves to their nervous system. Heart rate spikes, they react. Voice shakes, they overcompensate. Palms sweat, they rush. But emotional discipline reverses that hierarchy. Instead of your body controlling you, you control your body. Slow breath, measured speech, still posture. You train it deliberately. It's not about personality. It's about regulation. You don't need their permission to slow down, even when pressure screams for urgency. Especially then. Calm is dominance. In confrontation, calmness destabilizes opponents. If someone tries to intimidate you and you remain relaxed, their strategy weakens. Intimidation relies on emotional reaction. If you don't provide it, the tactic collapses. If someone attacks verbally and you respond without agitation, they feel exposed. Why? Because aggression without emotional feedback feels awkward. Calmness removes the fuel, and without fuel, escalation dies. But here's the deeper layer. Emotional discipline creates what looks like fearlessness. But it's not the absence of fear. It's mastery over it. You still feel adrenaline. You still feel tension. You still feel risk. But you do not obey it blindly. You observe it. That observation creates space. In that space you choose. You have a choice. Let fear rush you, or let discipline slow you. Most bad decisions are made in emotional acceleration. Quick retaliation, quick investment, quick accusation, quick retreat. Speed without stability is chaos, but speed with calm is precision. That's the difference. Calm is dominance. In business, the calm negotiator wins better terms. In sports, the calm athlete performs under pressure. In relationships, the calm partner de-escalates conflict. In leadership, the calm individual becomes the emotional thermostat. Thermostats don't react to temperature. They regulate it. Be the regulator. That requires repetition. When tension rises, you practice slow breathing. When uncertainty appears, you maintain posture. When pressure builds, you reduce movement. Stillness communicates confidence. Rapid motion communicates anxiety. Your body speaks before your words. Train it. The nervous system you control becomes your advantage. Here's a practical exercise. The next time you feel pressure, do nothing for 5 seconds. No speaking, no reacting, no visible shift. Just breathe. You will feel discomfort. Good. Discomfort is the training ground. Each time you resist impulsive reaction, you strengthen regulation. Each time you maintain composure under stress, you build internal authority. And internal authority becomes visible. People sense it. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. You are steady. You are grounded. You are unshaken. That energy is intimidating, because most people are shaken easily. Calm is dominance. Fear often drives overcompensation. Loud voices, aggressive gestures, excessive confidence displays. But real confidence is quiet under pressure. If you have to perform strength, you don't have it. If you can remain calm when challenged, you do. You don't need to overpower the room. You need to stabilize it. That's leadership without title. That's authority without announcement. That's danger without aggression. Remember, in moments of crisis, people don't follow emotion. They follow stability. If you are stable, you become the axis around which others rotate. That is influence. You have a choice. Be swept into emotional storms, or become the eye of the storm. The eye is calm while chaos circles. That calm is not accidental. It is trained. You mastered volume. You mastered reaction. You mastered silence. You mastered facial discipline. You detached from approval. Now you are mastering your nervous system, because the body must obey the mind if you want true restraint. And once you control your internal state under pressure, you unlock the next layer of power, the space between stimulus and response. Chapter 8. Master the pause before response. Everything changes in the pause. Not the long pause. Not the dramatic pause. The disciplined pause. The space between stimulus and response is where power lives. Most people never access it. Something happens, they react. A message appears, they respond instantly. An insult lands, they fire back. Stimulus. Reaction. No space. No control. Pause. Then decide. That is the discipline. Between what happens and what you do about it, there is a gap. That gap may only be 3 seconds long. But inside those 3 seconds is your entire future trajectory. 3 seconds can prevent a ruined relationship. 3 seconds can prevent a lost deal. 3 seconds can prevent a reputation-damaging outburst. But only if you use them. You have a choice. React automatically, or pause intentionally. The pause feels unnatural at first, because you've trained yourself to respond instantly. Society rewards speed. Notifications demand immediacy. Conversations reward quick comebacks. But speed without discipline is recklessness. Pause. Then decide. Let's make it practical. You receive a critical email. Your heart rate rises. You feel misunderstood. You start typing immediately. Stop. Hands off the keyboard. 3 breaths. Read it again slowly. Half the time, your first emotional interpretation was exaggerated. The pause protects you from your own assumptions. It's not about weakness. It's about clarity. Training yourself to delay reaction rewires impulsive behavior. Impulsivity is not personality. It is conditioning. And conditioning can be reversed. Each time you insert a pause, you weaken the automatic reaction loop. Stimulus used to equal reaction. Now stimulus equals awareness. Awareness equals choice. Choice equals control. Pause. Then decide. In arguments, this is critical. Someone says something sharp. Your ego flares. Words rush to the front of your mouth. Pause. Silence. Let the heat settle before you speak. Most arguments are not destroyed by disagreement. They are destroyed by impulsive escalation. You don't need to win the moment. You need to preserve control. If you react, you lose. If you pause, you gain leverage. Because the person who reacts emotionally is predictable. The person who pauses becomes unreadable. Unpredictability creates caution in others. Caution shifts power. Pause. Then decide. There is neuroscience behind this. Your emotional brain reacts faster than your rational brain. That's survival wiring. But survival is not leadership. When you pause, you allow the rational system to catch up. You allow logic to override impulse. You allow discipline to override ego. That is maturity. The 3-second rule is simple. When triggered, count to 3. 1, 2, 3. During those seconds, do nothing. No facial reaction. No verbal defense. No physical shift. Just breathe. You will feel tension. Good. That tension is the space where transformation happens. You have a choice. Relieve tension with reaction, or build power with restraint. Every pause strengthens your identity as someone who governs themselves. Every impulsive reaction weakens it. Pause. Then decide. The pause also protects your reputation. Words cannot be recalled once spoken. Messages cannot be unread once sent. Outbursts cannot be unseen once displayed. 3 seconds is cheaper than damage control. 3 seconds is cheaper than apology. 3 seconds is cheaper than regret. This is not about suppressing emotion. It's about sequencing emotion. Feel first. Pause. Respond intentionally. The order matters. If you reverse it, respond first, think later, you surrender control. In leadership, the pause becomes contagious. When you pause before answering a difficult question, you signal thoughtfulness. When you take a breath before responding to criticism, you signal composure. Speed impresses amateurs. Control impresses professionals. Pause. Then decide. Let's talk about digital impulsivity. Social media comments, text messages, public debates. Instant reactions create permanent consequences. Instead of responding instantly, step away. Close the app. Put the phone down. Return later. You will almost always respond differently after time has passed. Why? Because intensity fades. Clarity increases, and clarity builds authority. You don't need their permission to delay response. You don't owe anyone instant access to your emotions. Immediate reaction is not strength. Measured timing is strength. That's the key. The pause is also powerful in opportunity. Someone pressures you to make a fast decision. Decide now. Pause. Pressure is often a tactic. Urgency is often manipulation. The pause disrupts it. When you say, "I'll think about it," you reclaim control. You move from reactive to strategic. Pause. Then decide. This habit compounds. At first, it feels mechanical. Then it becomes instinct. Eventually, you become known as someone who does not react impulsively. That reputation alone shifts dynamics. People approach you differently. They speak more carefully. They anticipate your steadiness. because they know you will not be rushed. That is power, and power is quiet. Remember this: a reaction feels satisfying in the moment. A disciplined response feels satisfying long-term. Short-term ego or long-term authority. You have a choice. The space between stimulus and response is small, but it is sacred. It is where identity is shaped. You are not trying to appear controlled. You are becoming controlled. Pause. Then decide. You mastered your nervous system. Now you are mastering time itself. Because the pause stretches time, creates space where others feel urgency. And in that space you become dangerous. But there is one final layer to this discipline. When you consistently pause, consistently remain calm, consistently restrain, something unexpected happens. You become unreadable. Chapter 9. Unpredictability through restraint. Emotional volatility is predictable. That's why it's weak. If you are known for exploding when criticized, people know exactly how to control you. If you are known for shutting down when pressured, people know exactly how to corner you. If you are known for overreacting when disrespected, people know exactly which button to press. Predictable emotion is exploitable. Calm consistency is intimidating. Unprovoked, unreadable, unmoved. That is the standard. Most people believe unpredictability comes from chaos, from being erratic, from being emotionally extreme. Wrong. Chaos is predictable. Instability is readable. Overreaction is expected. But restraint creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates hesitation. When people cannot read you, they hesitate to challenge you. Hesitation shifts power. You have a choice. Broadcast your emotions openly, or regulate them strategically. If people always know how you will react, they know how to influence you. If they don't know how you'll react, they proceed cautiously. Caution is leverage. Unprovoked, unreadable, unmoved. This does not mean you become robotic. It means your emotional responses are not automatic. You do not flare up instantly. You do not collapse instantly. You do not celebrate wildly or despair dramatically. You remain measured. Measured behavior disrupts expectations. And when expectations are disrupted, control shifts. Think about someone who is emotionally volatile. One small comment can ruin their day. One minor inconvenience can shift their mood entirely. Everyone around them adjusts behavior to avoid triggering them. That is not power. That is instability. Now imagine someone who remains composed regardless of circumstance. Praise doesn't inflate them. Criticism doesn't deflate them. Pressure doesn't distort them. That steadiness creates psychological weight, because consistency builds credibility, and credibility builds authority. Unprovoked, unreadable, unmoved. Strategic neutrality increases perceived strength. When someone tries to provoke you and fails repeatedly, they eventually stop trying. Why? Because manipulation requires a predictable outcome. If sarcasm doesn't get a rise out of you, it loses value. If criticism doesn't shake you, it loses impact. If praise doesn't intoxicate you, it loses leverage. Both negative and positive emotional hooks lose their grip. That's real freedom. You are no longer controlled by insult, but you are also no longer controlled by flattery. Most people are vulnerable to both. Insult destabilizes them. Praise manipulates them. But when you remain even, you cannot be steered easily. You have a choice. Be emotionally reactive to highs and lows, or be strategically neutral in both. Neutral does not mean indifferent. It means disciplined. It means your mood is not hostage to circumstance. That's the key. Unpredictability through restraint is about refusing to give away emotional data. Every visible reaction is data. Data reveals patterns. Patterns reveal weaknesses. Weaknesses invite strategy. If someone sees you get defensive about a specific topic, they use it later. If someone sees you light up with ego when complimented, they use it later. But when your reactions are controlled, data becomes scarce. Scarcity creates uncertainty, and uncertainty commands respect. Unprovoked, unreadable, unmoved. This is especially powerful in competitive environments. In business negotiations, leadership, the person who reveals the least emotionally often holds the advantage. If your competitor cannot tell whether you are pressured, they cannot calculate your limit. If your opponent cannot tell whether their tactic worked, they hesitate to escalate. Hesitation buys you time. Time buys you options. Options build leverage. This is not manipulation. This is discipline. You are not trying to confuse people. You are refusing to be transparent with instability. There is a difference. Emotional transparency with trusted allies builds intimacy. Emotional volatility in public spaces destroys authority. Know the difference. You don't need to perform emotion for the room. You don't need to exaggerate reactions to fit expectations. You don't need to display excitement to prove confidence. Controlled enthusiasm is stronger than chaotic excitement. Measured disappointment is stronger than dramatic outrage. Calm is dominance, and calm consistency is intimidating. Let's make this practical. When praised, respond with appreciation, not ego. When criticized, respond with consideration, not defensiveness. When pressured, respond with clarity, not urgency. Consistency is your shield. Over time, people begin to see you as stable. Stable people are trusted with responsibility. Stable people are not tested unnecessarily. Stable people are approached carefully. That's influence without effort. Unprovoked, unreadable, unmoved. The unpredictable element is not chaos. It is your refusal to react on cue. When someone expects anger and gets calm, they pause. When someone expects excitement and gets composure, they recalibrate. When someone expects panic and gets steadiness, they doubt their approach. That recalibration is your advantage. Because while they adjust, you remain steady. You have a choice. Be emotionally accessible to every stimulus, or be strategically selective. Selective response builds mystique. Mystique builds psychological strength. Strength reduces challenges. This is how restraint transforms perception. People may not know why they hesitate around you. They just feel it. They feel that you are not easily shaken, not easily impressed, not easily provoked. And that feeling changes their behavior. You are no longer reacting to the room. The room is reacting to you. That is power without aggression. That is dominance without force. That is danger without noise. Unprovoked, unreadable, unmoved. You mastered volume. You mastered reaction. You mastered silence. You mastered facial control. You detached from approval. You mastered your nervous system. You mastered the pause. Now you are mastering perception. Because unpredictability through restraint reshapes how others calculate you. And when people cannot calculate you easily, they respect you instinctively. There is only one final step left. Restraint must move from strategy to identity. Chapter 10. Make emotional restraint your identity. Temporary discipline fades. Motivation fades. Energy fades. Willpower fades. Identity endures. If emotional restraint is something you try to do, you will fail under pressure. If it is something you are, you will default to it automatically. That is the difference between effort and embodiment. You are no longer trying to stay calm. You are someone who does not lose control. I am controlled. I am composed. I am dangerous. Up until now, everything you've learned has been tactical. Lower your voice. Pause before responding. Control your face. Detach from approval. Use silence. Regulate your nervous system. Those are strategies. But strategies require attention. Identity requires none. When something becomes identity, it becomes automatic. You don't wake up and try to be yourself. You don't remind yourself to breathe. You don't practice your personality. You simply operate from it. Emotional restraint must reach that level. You have a choice. Treat discipline like a tool you pick up occasionally, or build it into who you are. Temporary discipline collapses under surprise. Identity-based discipline survives chaos. When someone insults you unexpectedly, you won't have time to remember the technique. You will default to your identity. If your identity is reactive, you will react. If your identity is governed, you will remain composed. I am controlled. I am composed. I am dangerous. Repeat it until it feels normal. Because repetition rewires belief, and belief shapes behavior. Most people see themselves as emotional beings trying to control reactions. You will see yourself as a controlled person who sometimes feels emotion. That shift is everything. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about integrating control. You feel anger, but you don't become anger. You feel pressure, but you don't become panic. You feel excitement, but you don't become reckless. You observe. You decide. You move. That is identity-level governance. When restraint becomes identity, manipulation fails automatically. Why? Because manipulation relies on emotional predictability. Flattery manipulates ego. Criticism manipulates insecurity. Urgency manipulates fear. Rejection manipulates attachment. But if your identity is stable, these hooks fail. Compliment me, I remain composed. Insult me, I remain composed. Pressure me, I remain composed. Not because I'm forcing it, because it's who I am. I am controlled. I am composed. I am dangerous. Dangerous not because I attack. Dangerous because I cannot be steered. There is nothing more intimidating than someone who cannot be emotionally moved against their will. That person becomes immune to social pressure, immune to intimidation, immune to bait. You don't need their permission to stay steady. You don't need validation to remain grounded. You don't need agreement to preserve control. This is the final transformation. You are no longer practicing calm. You are calm. You are no longer attempting discipline. You are disciplined. You are no longer experimenting with restraint. You embody it. That embodiment changes posture, changes tone, it changes presence. People feel it immediately, not because you announce it, but because consistency builds reputation. If every time pressure appears, you remain stable, people stop testing you. If every time conflict arises, you remain composed, people adjust their approach. If every time manipulation is attempted, it fails, people stop trying. Reputation compounds. Identity compounds. I am controlled. I am composed. I am dangerous. This phrase is not arrogance. It is alignment. Controlled means I govern my impulses. Composed means I regulate my emotions. Dangerous means I cannot be manipulated. This is the quiet power you have been building. It is not loud. It is not flashy. It does not need applause. It simply is. From this point forward, you do not rise to provocation. You do not chase approval. You do not over-explain. You do not rush response. You do not display instability. Not because you are trying, because you are governed. Governed internally. That internal governance makes you externally formidable. Remember, temporary discipline requires reminders. Identity requires none. When someone says something sharp, you don't think, "Stay calm." You simply remain calm. When pressure builds, you don't think, "Control your breathing." You simply breathe steadily. When insult appears, you don't think, "Don't react." You simply do not react. That is identity. And identity cannot be shaken easily. I am controlled. I am composed. I am dangerous. Say it until it becomes automatic. Because once restraint becomes identity, everything else falls into place. Silence becomes natural. Pauses become instinctive. Boundaries become firm. Decisions become clear. And your presence changes. You walk slower. You speak less. You observe more. Not to perform power, but because you possess it. This is the final level of emotional restraint. Not strategy. Not technique. Self-concept. You are no longer someone trying to manage emotion. You are someone who governs it. And when you govern yourself, no one else can. That is the ultimate form of danger. Not chaos. Control. Not aggression. Stability. Not dominance through force. Dominance through restraint. I am controlled. I am composed. I am dangerous. And from this point forward, so are you. Power is not volume. Power is not intimidation. Power is not aggression. Power is restraint. The world is full of emotional reactors. People who flare up, lash out, overshare, over-explain, and self-destruct under pressure. They are predictable. They are readable. They are controllable. You are no longer one of them. You pause before speaking. You control your face. You refuse to be provoked. You do not chase approval. You do not explain unnecessarily. You let silence apply pressure. You move deliberately. And because of that, you become dangerous. Dangerous not because you are chaotic, but because you are stable. From this moment forward, your standard is simple. No reaction without intention. No emotion without control. No words without purpose. Now ask yourself, in the next conflict, the next insult, the next moment of pressure, will you react, or will you remain dangerous? The choice begins now.